So in this video, we'll be looking at some period gramophone modifications on some of the gramophones I have. Now this first one, this is a Rexonol, and now you may notice something a bit odd about it. The lid doesn't really match up with the rest of the cabinet. Now that is because this was originally a tabletop gramophone that someone at some point made a whole new cabinet for. Now, much of the case, the original case, is still part of this. You can tell because there's two different timbers. There's the stringy oak, which is the silky oak, which is the additions, and there's just the plain oak, which is the original. So a lot of these, the carved bits, the lid, this is all original. That isn't though. And a lot of the interior. You can see that's the original case, and then there's a spacer put in. It still has its original grille, and below here is the record storage that was added. And you can see the beautiful grain of the silky oak, and it's just horizontal record shelves. It's a very nice cabinet feat too. Now, how I know that this was originally a table model, apart from the smaller horn and the narrower lid, is that it still has the original table model case, the table gramophone case in here. You can see there's the record storage, there's the new cabinet, and here's the old one. And now, if I just put that like that, you might just be able to tell. There's a gap between the old and new, and I can actually still feel the original finish. Now the base obviously is gone, and the base moulding, but the sides of the cabinet are still in there. It still has both escutcheons for the crank too, so you can just see the glint of metal in there, which can make threading the crank in a bit difficult. While the cabinet was rather drastically changed, it still has all its original metal fittings, the motor's original, needle cups, the speed adjuster, brake, and the sound box, which also helped me identify it. Although if it hadn't had this sound box, I don't know if you can read that, but if it hadn't had this sound box, it's still got the distinctive Rexonol grille. This gramophone had what is probably the most common gramophone modification. Now it has, well, what it would have had originally, a number 4 sound box, but what I got with it was a Paled Maestrophonic number 13. This might have been done because I wanted to upgrade, or maybe that sound box broke. You usually see it on earlier ones. This one's quite a late one to have had it done because this is already designed for electrically recorded records. Usually you see it on gramophones that were designed for acoustic records, and then they bought a later sound box, usually with an aluminium diaphragm. I think this one has. Again, can't see it. Yeah, that's quite a common modification, but it's very easy to reverse, fortunately. Now this Aeolian Vocalion, this also was a table model, and it still is a table model, but it had some additions done. So the lid, this is a Model D, I think, or a Style D. And they didn't have a lid, that was the base model. So this lid was added. It's quite bulky. It does make it look a bit ridiculous, but it serves its purpose. But this was just a table model, no lid, just internal horn. And they also added a record cabinet. And this one's actually separate, although it does fit very tightly. I was worried it was all attached when I got it, and it wouldn't fit in the car. It's not as well made as the other one. You can see the screws showing, and it just looks a bit like a kitchen cabinet almost. It also doesn't fit 12-inch records vertically, which was quite annoying. And then it's got pretend cabriole legs. They're just cut out. Although it did make it easier to replace one of them, which was broken. You may have noticed that this motorboard is a bit raised, and that this turntable doesn't really look right for this, nor does the speed adjuster. That's because the motor has been changed. The other hint is, the other very obvious hint is that there are 2 holes for a crank. This motor is a Garrod. This is not what it originally had. and it's actually a bit too big for the case. That's why they had to use some cardboard spacers to raise the motorboard, because it was scraping on the horn. But apart from that, well, apart from all those modifications, it's still got its original tone arm and sound box. You can see that the lid has been attached via some small wooden blocks screwed into the back, and that there is what appears to be a serial number nailed to the back. Now, another modification that I've seen, although I don't have an example of my own, is replacing the gramophone acoustic arm and or sound box with an electric one. Now you can see here, this is HMV's one, and you have a tone arm, a bakelite tone arm that you can replace your gramophone's acoustic one with, so you can attach it to your radio and play it through your radio with electric amplification. And you also have, for someone who might not be able to afford that, or doesn't want to put one on it, you can just put the pickup right onto the old tone arm and get sound through. I haven't seen those that much, but I've seen the arms. I have even seen one where they put, instead of replacing the acoustic arm with the electric pickup, they had put it on the other side, so it could be used either way, either electric amplification or acoustic, which I thought was pretty clever. Another modification I've seen, although again don't have an example of my own of, is replacing both the original spring motor and the acoustic tone arm and sound box with an electric turntable that often plays both 78s and later microgroove records. Now, I've seen a few examples, some better done than others, although the worst one I saw was where they replaced the turntable and then put a speaker in, not where the grill was for the horn, but had cut a hole through the record cabinet door and put it in there. Why? I don't know, because it looked terrible. Sometimes they'll even put an amp in, where the grill was. And with one, I saw an old Aeolian Vocalion where the grill folded down. They had they left the grill door there, and then when you opened it, there were the amplifier controls, which actually looked pretty neat, although I suppose it was a bit sad that such a nice gramophone was destroyed for it, but what can you do? So that's a look at the gramophone modifications I've encountered. Now, I hope you've enjoyed watching this, and while I suppose these might be quite frustrating for collectors to encounter, finding nice gramophones that have been modified, making them maybe not as desirable or not what we wanted, but I find them quite interesting because they tell a story of people's differing needs over time, and people instead of just tossing it out and replacing it, they did keep it and tried to keep it useful. So, thank you for watching.